Okay, take one. Let's see how this goes. I don't know how to start. Welcome. Thanks for being here. I figured there's no better place to start than the beginning. So I did give an intro on Instagram already, so you can check that out. It's calm.confident.sober on Instagram and something similar on TikTok. I should probably look that up. Anyway, so we're just gonna get a bit into my story, how I got here. And I'm gonna keep it pretty vague, and I don't wanna get too into the weeds. So, but if you do feel triggered at all by any of this, then feel free to click away. Most of the videos will not be like this. So I'll take you back to 2008. I was a new mom, and about 6 months after my son was born, I was diagnosed for the first time with a mental health illness, and that was postpartum depression. And also for the first time, I was given a prescription to deal with that from my family doctor. And that was kind of it. I didn't know what I was supposed to expect to feel. You know, I'm used to being up here, and depression has me down here, and then my medicine takes me up here. And so you can imagine there would be a desire to fill in that last little bit there. And I found an easy solution, knowing already how my body reacted, how I reacted to alcohol. So alcohol is my drug of choice. And I began to lean on it as sort of a supplement to my mental health medication, you know, a way to unwind, a way to calm down, a way to cope, a way to reward myself. And I'm sure that's familiar to a lot of you. So alcohol kind of filled in the gaps. And at the time, which it really wasn't that long ago, not even 20 years ago, it wasn't as easy as it is nowadays, or it wasn't as common as it is nowadays to talk about mental health. And no one in my family, as far as I knew, had experienced any kind of addiction or mental health difficulties. And so I felt a little bit out of sorts, not sure where to turn, who to talk to, without embarrassing myself and my husband, embarrassing my family. So I tried to just plug on my own and do the best I could. And I have 4 children. So with each pregnancy after that first one, I would be completely sober during the pregnancy and nursing fine. And then, as commonly happens, postpartum depression occurs again when you have another baby. If you've had it once, most likely you'll have it again, often a little bit worse each time. So I kind of began a cycle of healthy pregnancy, slowly starting to feel not so good, go get my prescription from the doctor, then start to fill it in a little with a little drink here and there. Then before I know it, I'm using it more heavily than I was the first time or the second time or the third time. But I was also relying on those pregnancies as some kind of indicator that I didn't actually have a problem, because I was able to stop for like a year or however long. And so, you know, if I had a problem, I wouldn't be able to. And I think maybe that's familiar for other moms as well. So then came my last pregnancy, and my daughter was born in 2017. And there were no longer any other pregnancies on the horizon. There wasn't that external motivation. And so I said, now what? So I did go back to my doctor, and she suggested weaning myself off alcohol, which means take the amount that you're having each day and just have a little bit less each day, and just gradually decrease it until you're having none. And I didn't know any better. I hadn't heard anything else. So I was willing to try that. And I don't know if you've ever used alcohol to cope before, but you either want to fully cope or not at all. It's a very difficult thing to almost get there, almost feeling relief, and then, okay, better stop there. In other words, it was a failure from the start, and I tried many times, and I would just get discouraged, and I would try to decrease, and then I would just give up, and whatever, I'll just go back to normal for a while, and then... So then, realizing that I couldn't wean, I tried to just quit completely. I would try to go cold turkey. I would experience what I later learned were withdrawals, and I would just be up all night, sick, sweating, shaking, terribly anxious, and just go for as long as I could stand like that. And then obviously I couldn't stand it forever, and I would just cycle back in. So I was stuck in this horrible loop, and each time I went back to drinking, it was worse and darker, and I got sicker, and going off was harder, and I would prolong it. And occasionally I would get sick enough that I would pop into the ER, wait a few hours. They would see me, hydrate me, stabilize me, and send me home with a prescription for the next couple of days. And that prescription would help. But then again, now what? I've detoxed for a couple of days, and I don't know what to do next. So I would end up drinking again, because I didn't know what else to do. And I was still at a point of just trying to manage it in that way on my own and with my husband. So in 2019, I finally resigned from my job. I worked with wonderful people and I had a wonderful job, but I knew that what I was going through personally was affecting my job, as much as I wanted to deny it and as much as I tried to overcome it. And, at first, the people I worked for said, maybe it's not affecting it as much as you think it is. And maybe just we can work through this together. And then once I had pointed it out, they were kind of like, yeah, maybe it's affecting your job. So I did resign. And now I had outed myself with people who I knew and whose opinions I valued. And that was scary. Then a global event happened in 2020 and lasted for a couple of years. And I think for a lot of people, that was a time when lifestyle habits took interesting turns. You either became really good at making sourdough, or you had odd drinking hours that seemed like, I don't know. And the isolation of that time, and being blessed as I am with beautiful kids, and we had a yard, I had so much going in my favor. The lack of schedule and the isolation and the negativity of the news, it just helped to accelerate what was already happening. And I was able to fully recognize that I had an addiction. I had a severe addiction. I could not stop on my own. And when I tried to stop, I became very sick. And in a sense, crazy as it might sound, I'm grateful that that happened, that the global event exacerbated things so much, because then I couldn't deny to myself anymore that I needed to seek help. And the first kind of help that I needed was medical. And so eventually I did end up spending a few nights in the hospital. I was just in the ER to fully detox with medical supervision and with medical help. And during that time, I also accepted the resources that they were offering as far as addictions counseling, addictions treatment. I wasn't ready for the full package yet, but I was ready to actually get started. And so that's when I consider that my recovery really began. I was given a checklist when I left the hospital, and I love a good checklist. So get a family doctor, which is nearly impossible, but I did find one, and book a psychiatrist, go to the addictions clinic and meet with an addictions doctor. and start attending meetings and seeking counseling. So I tried to do all those things perfectly right at the beginning. And I am so grateful that a good friend of mine who had been in recovery for a while invited me to attend his Smart Recovery meetings on Saturday mornings. It was something that fit in my schedule, and I loved what I was learning and tried some, didn't try others, failed a lot, tried again, learned more, just kept going. And the non-judgmental environment of that group was crucial to me. I didn't feel ashamed of slips. I didn't feel embarrassed to ask questions. And this isn't to imply that in other meetings, in other programs, one would feel ashamed or embarrassed or anything. But I was just glad to be where I was and that I was feeling the way I was there. So I had some good periods of sobriety and attended the React program by Tim Fletcher. I'll address more of that later and include some links, but you can Google Tim Fletcher and see what he's about, which was awesome. And then I had more slips. I came to a point where I needed to go to treatment, and that's where I was in 2024. And that basically brings me to today. I've learned a lot, but actually applying that knowledge, using the tools, and getting results has taken a lot of time. It's taken patience, practice, and persistence. Wink. Some of you may like that. But I'll share, because I don't know where to go from here. I'll share 3 things that I've learned over this period. I had to relinquish control to gain control. So I had to stop clenching and holding on so tightly to this essentially pride that was keeping this all together and holding an image in place that it's okay, we're safe here, everything's fine, I'm fine, I can do this, I can fix this, I can be fine for my family. You know, there's a lot of messaging in that for us moms. And so that's the first thing. I had to unclench and stop trying to do it my way. I had to become vulnerable in order to become strong. I really had to let people in and just begin to show it all in places where I felt safe enough to try. And it took time. But the vulnerability is where all the softness is, and all the malleability and healing. And from a healed place, you can build back stronger. That's my experience anyway. That's how I feel. And I had to make mistakes to succeed. We hear that failure is our best teacher. And in the moment of making those mistakes and failing, it hurts, and it can often do a lot of damage, and things can get worse before they get better. But I had to use those mistakes as teachers to bring me to where I am now. And I will continue to make mistakes, and I will continue to look to those mistakes as teachers in order to improve, get better at this, get stronger. So I think that's all I have to say about me. And I can get into more details about certain parts of my story over time, but I just wanted to start here so that there was a sense of where I'm coming from. And maybe you'll feel a little bit more comfortable with me knowing that I've been willing to share this. Not that you have to share this much, but maybe you'll feel more comfortable to open up just a little bit. At any point, feel free to ask questions in the comments, or you can DM me over on Instagram. And meantime, share whatever you want to down there in the comments, and take care of each other, please. Be kind. Okay, that's all.